Okay, everybody ready to get started? Thank you, Steve. My name is Jeff Mucci. I'm with RCR Wireless News. We've recently launched a new online community focused on the enterprise IoT. So if you haven't checked out Industrial IoT 5G Insights, check it out. We're going to be doing an event in January focused on the enterprise IoT market. So if you've got case studies or how-to workshops on how to build and implement a successful IoT strategy, please keep us in mind. Our conversation today is really, we're going to talk about how to make money and monetize IoT, and I like that last slide where it talked about how to turn asset into cash and income streams. And so we've got a great panel today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and try to keep it under a minute. These guys are pros, so they'll weave
some of them can.
They'll weave their commercials into the overall time we have today. But why don't we start at the end and just work our way this way and introduce yourself, what your company does.
Sure. Hi, Jason Ashton. I'm the president and CEO of CallPass M&M Solutions, Inc. We're a full-service provider of hardware, application services, and data. We're based out of Clearwater, Florida.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Lawler. I am the Chief Services Officer with USA Technologies. For those who are not familiar with us, we provide cashless payment systems to the lovely world of vending and other unattended retail like kiosks and commercial laundry and parking.
My name is Joel Urano. I'm the CEO of Modus Systems, and we provide a incubator service for new companies getting into the IoT space from a telecom tax and regulatory compliance perspective.
My name is Karl Burns. I'm actually new to cellular. I was in product design before this gig at T-Mobile, and I work at T-Mobile up at headquarters, and we're trying to break the wireless industry. It's a lot of fun.
You know, I'm interested in hearing the compliance and taxes. But we'll get to that in a minute. Sure. You actually got to pay taxes on the money you make. But first question is, and I've been hearing this all year, is why is it so difficult to monetize IoT and really create a successful, viable, measurable business plan for IoT? And maybe I'll start here. What do you see as number one or two reasons why it is simply so difficult?
Well, probably top two is we look at these opportunities from our traditional business model lenses. And to be fair, with this disruption and all these disruptive technologies, a lot of those business models either may not apply or should be massaged. And we're going through that learning process right now as those emerge. So, you know, believe me, I'm in carrier space, and we have very traditional models that are the mass of our revenue streams right now. And when people come up to us with new ideas on monetizing it, well, when they go up to other carriers, they can get the door slammed in their face. We'll listen. But we're still having that learning of how do I make money in this space as well when it doesn't look like or line up with my business process, my revenue model, or my controls and procedures across the organization. That's number one. Number two, a good amount of these business models are pretty long-term oriented, where you have to build mass or scale before you can really have something sizable to resell, and that just takes time. And you're talking about a space that's ill-defined or is slowly defining itself and new technologies. And just think of that diffusion curve. It just takes a while to get there.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think one of the biggest challenges new players in the space face is when they're looking at their business plan and building a pricing strategy, the issues that are going to come up that if they don't address at the forefront are, again, what's the cost for taxation, reporting, and regulatory compliance, right? And it's easy to look at, well, no, I take that back. It's not easy to look at a solution and build, you know, the connectivity and the platform and the hardware. And that's the sexy part. That's the fun part of putting the solution together. But, you know, at the end of the day, we all have CPAs in our business, or, you know, we use accounting firms, and look, it's not optional. It's required. You don't have a choice. And you know, as these taxes are applied in some situations and others, depending on how your solution might break out, you know, there are some ramifications that need to get addressed. And what we don't like to see is a firm or some innovator puts a product together and goes to market, and they didn't consider the cost of compliance when they're operating in, you know, a multi-state jurisdictional situation. So that's a big piece.
Well, I guess I'm fortunate in that the world that we live in, again, we provide wireless cashless payment systems to vending and other what we call unattended retail businesses. These are historically cash and coin-based businesses. And now through this connected technology, we're now bringing the world of cashless or electronic payments. And with our large client base of over 11,000 customers in the US market, our technology is actually generating typically 20-25% sales revenue increase because of the ability now to accept, believe it or not, just credit or debit cards with mobile payments and things like vending machines when you're parking at a kiosk, commercial laundry. So we've been very fortunate that we have a very significant business model that's helping our client base to grow, and that's why you start to see in these what we call everyday spend locations, cashless is now becoming the norm. It's not the exception anymore. And the other ancillary benefit is that once you connect these machines, they can extract other sales and inventory information where they can now actually run their business more effectively. It's been already proven out that they're reducing 25% of their fleet. So not only do you get the revenue increase of 20-25%, you get a significant reduction in the cost of running their business, and this is really driving these markets that we serve.
Got it. Jason?
I would say the challenge really becomes education, acceptance, and timing. If you're going to talk about where and how are you going to make money, it's really the customers, all right? We're at a point where education rules the day. Companies have trigger points. They have issues that take place, so they react. A lot of companies don't know these solutions are out there. IoT becomes a buzzword for them, something a data carrier might have presented to them in a meeting. So it takes them a while to accept that the technology is out there, and it actually costs a little bit of money. So your challenge becomes, are you timing the phone call right? Did they have that aha moment where, okay, this makes sense now? If you're timing it properly, you're usually in good shape. Otherwise, you're doing what every salesman tries to do, which is get someone's attention and educate them. All right, so it really becomes, the challenge of, is the perfect storm here? Do they need your help? Or can you demonstrate to them you have a solution for a problem that may not have, hasn't arisen yet?
I'm going to jump a little bit off the script I sent around, but why don't you continue on and give us a couple use cases of where your solution was deployed, and then we'll probe a little bit further and talk about some of the details of actually deploying it.
Sure. A lot of different use cases, okay? Where to begin? Great example. Anybody here familiar with the pine straw industry? Yeah, me neither. All right. So, yeah. So if you know what pine straw is, I mean, and what could a connected device do in the pine straw industry, right? So you get into a scenario where you have a company that has trailers that needs to have the trailers in utilization, right? Picking up the straw, delivering the straw, everything's time associated, and you would look at it from a standpoint of, hey, if I lose trailer A, it costs X to replace the trailer. Well, the monetization gets overlooked, right? And what happens is it starts off as, I don't want to lose something, and then once the connected device is actually in play and they're utilizing an application, it's like, okay, wait a minute, there's a revenue generating opportunity through this device. So now you get to handle your scheduling a little bit differently. Your timing of your pickups and delivery are on time, which obviously creates revenue for you as a company, all right? You have dwell and demurrage, where the utilization of a trailer is sitting on a lot and it's been there for 3 days over contract. You now have the ability to charge that organization for additional funds. So again, something that starts off as a very simple use case, I'm worried about losing trailer X that has a Y cost to it. You add the IoT solution to it, it becomes no longer about cost reduction, it becomes about increased revenue generating.
Come on down. Yeah. Specific example, and let's get in the weeds. Talk about how to really turn it into a successful business opportunity for your customer.
Yeah, so I'm going to build on what I just said a few minutes ago. So we have over 400,000 various, I'll focus on vending machines primarily, that are deployed with our technology, where once it's been deployed, it's very easy for our clients to implement it because there's really not a whole lot of change management required. It's very consumer driven. So there's an education process when you walk up to a vending machine and you see now that it accepts credit and debit cards and mobile payments. But once the consumer gets familiar with that, their change of habit happens instantaneously. So our technology deploys literally in 15 minutes. We have wireless partners that those devices are already pre-activated. So we've made it easy for our clients to deploy this technology where we provide a hardware solution, wireless capabilities, and we also process the transactions on the back end. And instantaneously, typically within 6 months, they're seeing 15, 20, 25% sales increases. So there's minimal capital investment. They have historical data that what they were doing prior to cashless, which is cash or coin. So they see this immediate return. and you combine that with easy, rapid deployment capabilities, it's just kind of taken a world of itself, and that's what's kind of regenerating the whole vending business.
Were customers having to retrofit?
Yes.
Or swap out their vending machines, or were they able to put an add-on component?
It's 95% retrofit. They'll take an existing vending machine, just like you see in your workplace or on your college campus or military bases, or you see throughout the casinos here, and they will literally take our wireless POS terminal, install it. It's already have a pre-activated cellular account with one of our partners, connect back to our network, we'll process all those transactions. It's just easy. So it is all retrofittable. And because of myself and others in the company, we're familiar with the vending world, we've made it easy to retrofit to existing machines.
I remember years ago, I saw the Coca-Cola guys talking about IoT and this and that, and then I took my kids to the zoo, and I couldn't use the excuse I don't have any money. Don't have any change, don't have any dollar bills, because they knew I had a credit card. So next thing they were getting juice and milk and all that sort of thing. But it's a good setup for the compliance. What's the cost of not complying with the right taxing authorities and jurisdictions?
Well, you know, there's certainly, it's a huge expense if you get caught, right? It's the government's going to throw the book at you if you get caught, but if you made a mistake and you come clean, you can negotiate much better results, I'll say. There's a lot of issues to look at, and I think if there's anything I could tell somebody, it's don't just rely on your general CPA that does your financials. Go find somebody that's got specific telecom experience and is familiar with all of the multi-jurisdictional tax issues related to telecom, because I think one of the biggest mistakes that we see is firms say, well, I don't have an office there, I don't have an employee in that state, so I'm not subject, there's no nexus there, I'm not subject to collect taxes. Well, guess what? In almost every state in the union, if you bill one customer in that state, you've created a nexus in the telecom space. This isn't hardware anymore, right? It's telecom. And when you put a customer, or there's a customer in that state, you create a nexus, and now you have to be at least a foreign entity, if not a local entity in that state, to remit the taxes. So, compliance isn't cheap, unfortunately, and there's a couple ways to do that, and we think we've got a great option. But again, it's just getting into the space, I would say, go find and I'm happy to even recommend some folks, but go find a telecom CPA and a telecom attorney that knows specifically about these pieces, because it's easier to get it right and cheaper to get it right out of the gate than it is to clean up the mess afterwards.
Well, how do you define jurisdiction when you've got an asset that has a recurring revenue stream with it, but is moving from state to state, county to county, city to city, and even country to country? Sure.
So the letter of the law says, where the asset is. However, and the law being the Mobile Telecommunications Sourcing Act. So the letter of the law is, where's that device? However, with mobile units, like the vending machines, which could move, right? Oh yeah, all the time. Right? So with those type of devices, you can really you can get yourself in a great position by having your customer declare what's the place of primary use. So, it's a simple saying, here's our billing addresses, this is our place of primary use, and so that's how you can determine taxation for their units. So, I've got a customer that's in Louisiana, but they've got tablets all over the country. Well, they've declared to AT&T that our place of primary use is Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so they're paying taxes in Baton Rouge. Now, is that exactly right? No, but no one's going to argue with them, because there's really no way to keep track of where those devices are at 24/7. And could we get there at some point in the future? Sure, because you can tell where the devices are through the network, right, Carl? Yeah. So, but that's just too much of a headache, and I don't think even the state level they don't want to look at that stuff.
Or God forbid, an Elliott Spitzer type gets a hold of this issue.
So Carl, I'm really, I guess your boss was here a little while ago, and he talked about.
He stole my pocket square too. Did you know that?
T-Mobile's going to magentize. Is that a word? The IoT industry. Can you give us some examples of how you're going to do that, or have you already done that?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned earlier, we're trying to transform or break, in some cases, the wireless industry. Those sound harsh, but in reality, our DNA, our North Star is how do we create and unlock value for all parts of the value chain. These winner-take-all business models really don't align with the amount of things that need to come together from the ecosystem in the IoT space to create value and to keep all of these afloat so that we have new services. So specifically, I don't know, we talked about the pine shipping industry earlier. I can think about the energy utility space. So what's been happening across America for the past 30 years is energy companies buy kilowatt hours of electricity to deliver to our homes. They buy those months in advance in kind of a commoditized space. They pay $10 a kilowatt hour, just using round numbers so you get the impact. Well, at certain times, they have overbought. And there is actually an incentive where they can make $100 to burn off electricity, because the electrical grid is vast and effective, but it's actually pretty fragile in some ways. And in these unique circumstances, they got too much energy and they need to get rid of it. The way energy companies have operated for years is just, a room full of MBAs and math geeks trying to forecast what the numbers are going to be for what they need to buy for kilowatt hours of energy. But in those moments, they lose an opportunity. Well, what if, wink, it's coming up, right? What if there was an opportunity to control things in people's homes that could burn off that energy, and then you lower your cost of operations? So T-Mobile's partnering with people that are deep in this space, and with, Duke Energy, Florida Power and Light, et cetera, to create this kind of environment. Now think about the intricacy. I've got an asset, say it's something that uses electricity, right? I need to make sure I don't interrupt customer and how they use it. I need to give customer access to, so we're transparent. Then I need to have a third-party software vendor create software that manages it. Then I need the electrical utility company, when those pricing mechanisms trigger, to enable 10,000 of these to burn off electricity. I have to have notifications on when it does, notify customer, validate that it did happen, and then come back to the energy company and say, yes, we did, and then they can validate against what their purchase requirements were or what the impact on their grid was. That's all got to work together seamlessly, and kind of like, FedEx, right? There's a lot of setup time before the first time you get to have that event. Now, the reason I say that is that creates value for the customer, because you're lowering their cost of energy. It's creating value for the energy company, because they can lower their operating costs. It's a win-win-win, and they're using my network, so it's a win for me, because I can make money on the transportation of that. But what's really fascinating in the IoT space is if you have a partner, not bragging, if you have a partner who will think of new models, and we are actually going to monetize it in a completely unique way, then we can actually defer some costs, as well as ensure that everyone is better off afterwards, as opposed to just saying, here, pay me, and then go figure it out. And it's, again, these new models that are really unlocking the value in IoT.
That's a good point about business models. Are there, and this is a question for the group, but are there some traditional business models that are going to transition into IoT, or kind of are destined to fail? Which ones seem to make sense? Which ones just simply aren't going to become digital transformation IoT successes?
Well, the traditional wholesale resale model will never go away, because there are plenty of entrepreneurs with great ideas who are going to build a company and can take that risk and love it, right? The one that's been kind of the topic du jour has been revenue share, where people put in their assets or their services, and then one person owns customer, and that gets divvied up in some way, shape, or form. I think that's a baby step towards event management or event-based pricing. What's going to have to happen, though, is that business model actually has to match up with the economic logic or value that's created. So for instance, in an IoT setting, is it something that creates value for one, two, or all parts of the chain, right? Well, then you need a business model that coordinates across that. But in some cases, I have a lot of customers come to me and say, I want to pay on event. So just so that we're all speaking the same language, if everything's running smoothly, and they're using a little bit of my network, there isn't a transaction. But when an event occurs that's of high value, red light, something's flooded, things like that, well then a large payment needs to occur. The challenge there, no one's going to want to write that check. That check's going to set off a lot of flags, and it's going to disrupt a lot of other business processes, as opposed to being in our traditional models. So I think there's tolerance and acceptance of new models, but you've really got to figure out how they align with the value capture across the whole ecosystem.
Yeah. Any other comments of old models, new models? Which ones are going to transition, which ones aren't?
Well, I think one of the things that's happening in the retail world, and I think we've all seen it, with the change in consumer behavior, I think we'll recognize that consumers want to be more self-serve. They want to do things on themselves. And with this type of connected technology, you're starting to see more traditional big box retailers get into the world of self-serve kiosks and retailing, you've probably seen Best Buy kiosks, you've seen Apple and iPhone kiosks. So what they're trying to do is use this technology and the trend to self-serve. I mean, you can see self-serve in traditional retail stores right now where you never have to talk to anyone, you have to do anything yourself. They're going to try to figure out how to put their products at your fingertips. They're going to bring Best Buy stores into some of the casinos, into the malls. So any type of retail that's traditional big box, it's that omni-channel presence. How can I either do it online, in the store, or at your fingertips? One of our biggest clients is Starbucks. They have a coffee kiosk that we work with them. They actually put these in workplaces. And it uses the same process where they call the bean to cup, where it grinds the beans and make a cup of coffee. They're going to put it at your fingertips. So they're going to do everything they can through the self-serve technology to make it easy for you to buy their products. So it is transforming the retail business.
And then the IoT piece of it needs to be, as I get closer, there's a beacon and it knows me and it knows my habits and what I buy and it's waiting.
That's the next evolution from electronic payments now to engaging with the consumer for rewards and loyalty and relevant marketing. So this is all coming full circle in terms of how it's all being driven by this type of connected technology.
You know, do you mind if I jump in with a question?
Sure.
Because he's bringing up a great point also. I believe we're going to, I don't know that all of us in this room are going to rethink, but I think, you know, the up and coming generations, obviously called the Millennials and such, are going to have a different view on privacy. Like, I'm willing to give away a lot of my coffee habits, let's be fair. You know, and you can have that data. I know we worry a lot of times about security of data, but I think there's going to be, they're going to have different expectations, and there's probably going to create a lot more opportunity for us in the IoT space pretty quickly.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They're about mobility, they're about relevance. You know, how do you make my life better? I don't want to talk about the masses. Tell me how, they know you know all the information about them. How do you make my life better relevant?
I mean, it's fun to talk about all this future stuff, but Jason, I'm going to come back to you and the Pine Straw example, or pick any one of your other customer examples. Walk us through how involved you were with helping your customer build the business case for making the investment in your technology and helping them project what that ROI might look like.
Yeah, I mean, we're involved in every level of the discussion, start to finish. And, you know, we focus on business to business. This conversation, you know, we're kind of blending some streams here. There's obviously consumer needs in the IoT space, but there's a huge business impact as well. There was a time where you can just suggest that a device was used for a singular purpose. Those days are long gone. And we're involved every step of the way with our customers because we need to be. And it's not, you know, it always starts with an idea. I mentioned earlier there's a trigger moment or there's an event that takes place of why we need to investigate this. And then through further discussion, that event, you know, spawns, you know, 4, 5, 6 different other use cases for a particular device, for a particular application, and how you're going to utilize it, all right? So are we going to utilize the device and the application from a monetization standpoint to increase revenue for the business? Are we going to decrease or, you know, increase efficiencies, which is going to decrease costs, all right? So from my perspective, or, you know, my sales teams, if you will, they're hours, if not days, weeks, and months involved with these companies, start to finish at every level, whether it's C-level, user level, everything needs to be defined, and then becomes the data. How do we utilize the data as a company, right? So if you think you're going to get in this business and you're just going to, you know, sling devices and I'm going to set the world on fire, I'm going to move units, those days are gone. Yeah, they're gone.
So let's continue with that. Did you effectively become, or does your company become the system integrator in those cases? You know, this morning we heard about gateways and connectivity and, you know, everything's going to be fine from this guy, right? But, and now you got the developer toolkits. Are you effectively helping your customer design and implement an end-to-end solution? Yeah,
we are. We have a lot of partners, and, you know, from a telecom perspective, you know, we're not a network company, that's for sure. But ultimately, we, as a full service provider, I'm providing every aspect of the solution, all right? So I'm providing the hardware, we're providing the data connection with the help and backbone of our carrier, and then we obviously are a software development company, we have our own application. So we become the full service solution, and we're the only visibility that customer has, all right? So Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, all right, they may know they're on that network, but they're not calling Verizon if something happens, they're calling us. If my device doesn't work, I'm not calling Verizon customer support, we're calling Jason. You know, so we become the full service provider.
I don't know if you saw the last presenter, but he talked about shifting the value in economics terms to the 60% of the value should go to the person who's got to own that relationship going forward. Are you seeing that you're able to maintain or create that much value accretive to you, or is it a battle with you and all the other components on the BOM?
I don't think it's a battle. I mean, I saw Guy's example, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's a great marketing piece. It really is. I think the reality of the situation, if you're in it from where we approach the marketplace as that full service provider, it's 100%. All right, and you have to be on top of every level. All right, I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of connected lines. I mean, that makes carriers happy. The line activations are nice. All right, but you need to sustain the service itself. We're responsible for the hardware. The hardware needs to work. All right, and so you create RMA processes, and you make sure that your devices are doing what they're supposed to do. And then the application, just like anything else, when you have a moment where you need to access the data, if that application isn't spot on, well, there's another problem. So for us, it's 100% commitment, and you need to be in on all levels. There is no, keep my eye over here because I have this percentage of my IoT stack that I'm going to monetize. It's all or nothing.
What's keeping you up at night? You see these charts of Narrowband IoT, Sigfox, LoRa, protocols. Does any of that keep you up at night, or what do you worry about?
Well. The compliance stuff keeps me up.
As it should.
Yeah.
When you say that again, you said the compliance stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something new. Whether it's taxation, whether it's state laws, federal laws, whatever the case may be. And again, you start out as a simple service provider, and then all of a sudden you're oh, don't look now, you have 100,000 or so connections on a data network that somehow, some way, somebody's taking a look into your business and saying, oh, you're a telecom provider. I'm really not.
You're an internet provider.
Yeah, so that's the stuff that keeps me up. It's those unwanted emails or phone calls, or, oh, by the way, we have to talk. So.
Got it. And so, Mike, you talked about you walk up to the coffee machine that knows your habits.
Yeah.
What does that mean in terms of the equipment you retrofit onto a vending machine?
Yep.
Is your world about to get a lot more complex in terms of the types of equipment you're deploying and maintaining?
Yeah, well, we've been at this for quite some time. So we've been very adept at connecting to any type of unintended retail machine, with vending machines, commercial laundry machines, kiosks. So we've gotten actually pretty good at that. So, but we have a couple challenges, and wireless is not one of them. Kudos to all the wireless companies, T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint. They've gotten so much more reliable and secure. That doesn't worry about us anymore. So what our challenges are is our solution is a business-to-business solution, where we have to take care of the clients who provide the vending services, but it's got to keep that consumer in mind. So we have to make sure that everything we do keeps the consumer in mind with changing payment trends. Things are shifting from traditional magstripe cards to mobile wallets, and who knows what's going to come next. So there's a lot of things that are changing with the consumer behavior. As we also talked about, now it's about loyalty and rewards and relevant marketing. But probably the biggest thing in our industry that we worry about and we have to stay on top of is data breaches. I think we've all heard and seen what's happened in the past with companies like Home Depot and Target with data breaches. We process a lot of transactions, we handle a lot of transactions. So that's the one thing we continually focus on is data security.
Okay. I don't want to get away too far from data security because it is important, but I am interested in your business. Do you also have an app and create a dashboard for your clients?
Yeah, we're a services company where, again, the wireless POS terminal is an instrument means. We want to connect them on our network where we process and settle their transactions. We build reconciliation and integrate right into their accounting systems. So yeah, they see all their transactions. We actually capture all their sales information, inventory information. So we have a comprehensive dashboard where they log on, they get all the reports, and they see all the trends of what's happening. That's how they can see and understand, because of all this data we capture, and we present it to them on how it's affecting their business. So yeah,
do you build a loyalty program for them as well?
Exactly. Yeah, we do. We can white label, and have already done this. We white label loyalty programs for them because, albeit, even though it's vending, it is still a retail business. And you typically have a defined consumer in the workplace or the college. So the question is, how can you get them to come there more frequently and spend more? It's just like any of the retail business. So we provide these loyalty programs and reward programs that we white label on behalf of our clients to do these types of programs.
Okay. It's nice that you're sitting next to Joel. So when do you connect your platform into guys like this, so you're getting automatic or batch records or real-time records so you can do the rating and compliance?
Well, you know, so you look at those records and it's really about setting it up on the front end, right? You have to say, here's the service, is it internet access, is it data telecom, right? And you really have to make sure you get that right at the onset. And, you know, I certainly think one of the mistakes that a lot of companies make is out of the gate, they say, oh, it's internet access.
Sorry?
They say, oh, it's internet access. I'm selling internet access. You're selling transport via the internet. You're not selling internet access where, you know, it's I can go to this website, right? So, I mean, your hardware might restrict access. And you know, lots of people want to argue with me about that, and that's okay. But my response to them is always the same. It's not me you have to convince. It's the state auditor or the USAC or whomever it may be. So, you know, in some senses, I'm just playing devil's advocate to help them prepare for something that they might get asked by somebody that has more dire consequences than what I've got. You know, me is just arguing with them. But, you know, but we definitely see that data and say, all right, well, here's what we think it is. If you want to take a conservative stance on what the tax policy should be, then, you know, here's one way to go. If you want to take an aggressive stance, here's another way to go. So, you know, we like to help our clients step through those pieces and you know, make those policy decisions. You know, again, everybody's going to make their own tax decision, right? How aggressive or conservative do I want to be from the risk standpoint of, you know, is it data, is it internet? That's one question. And again, I think the last piece I would point out there is that the tax, again, it's state by state. So I hear all the time, oh, it's data, it's not taxed. And my response to this is always the same. Which jurisdiction are you talking about? Are you talking about Chicago, city of Chicago? Are you talking about DeKalb County in Georgia? Are you talking about Dallas County in Texas? Are you talking about the state? You know, so there's so many different jurisdictions. It's very risky to say, state it's not taxed, because there are north of 43,000 different tax jurisdictions in the country for these calculations.
I'm thinking about these maker builder guys who take one of these dev kits, they create an app, they go start selling it, they get a nice little revenue stream, and then come April time frame, they got to file taxes. Is that the aha moment when they're like, holy crud, I've got now to think about, and their accounting firm's going to say, where did the transaction take place?
So I hope the accounting firm asks that. That's the first thing. And you know, I think one of the big mistakes also that companies make is if it becomes data telecom, and it's not in every case, but if it does, right, we've all probably seen these multi-jurisdictional sales and use tax exemptions, right? Mm-hmm. And say, all right, here's a list of states and here's my exemption number. That's fantastic. It covers you for sales and use tax. It doesn't cover you for telecom infrastructure fund, state USF, federal USF, state excise, federal excise, and the whole laundry list of other potential taxes that you might be subject to in a jurisdiction. So, you know, don't make the mistake of saying, oh, I gave them a reseller exemption and that covered me, because that's only actually two pieces of the pie when there could be, well, in the state of New York, you're looking at 26 different tax line items. So
this is probably the most confusing tax industry.
Absolutely.
That's the hard part.
In the United States, it's the most confusing in the world, right? Because you go to Canada, you look at VAT tax and it's one rate and it's across the country and that's it. Same thing with the EU. So it gets much simpler when you get outside the United States.
I'm going to give these guys a round of applause.
Thank you so much, guys. That'd be great.